Thank you very much. Excellent. I speak very quickly. I apologize for this. Also, I apologize because I'm not Florian Effenberger. You may notice the difference in the pictures. And Florian is sadly ill currently, so you have me as a pale imitation. Wonderful man, pray for his recovery. So I'll start with Florian's slides, and then I'll do mine, which I've kind of tacked onto the end. So Florian wanted me to point out that you have to change. I think this is typical. Life is change, etc. Blah blah. Better than that, culture is really important, and we have to get our culture right. We have to be about free software and about freedom, and not just about making software. I think freedom. Anyhow, the Document Foundation is something that sits behind LibreOffice, and it has a different name. It's not the LibreOffice Foundation; it's the Document Foundation. And that's because we care about documents, obviously, and open standards and so on. But anyhow, it's founded in Germany, and and it has its strong rights and membership, and both Florian and I are on the board, and we oversee the LibreOffice project and make sure it doesn't go wrong. That's the hope, which is great fun. The foundation is set up to be vendor neutral, vendor independent. No one vendor can control it. We think that's really, really important to avoid problems in the community. And so that really cuts two ways. LibreOffice is a product that is not made by one company. There is not one neck to strangle. It's made by a community of volunteers. So if something's wrong with it, it's your project too. You can get involved and fix it, right? It's not just a matter of flaming the one company behind it. Of course, if you want a neck to strangle, and I know people like that sort of thing, you can go to a company and get support, and then you can do as much of that as you like, so you can pay for support around it. But that's not something that LibreOffice itself does. Incidentally, you're noticing my remote control here. It's very flashy. I know it's a bit small, but when I press the buttons, we move ahead. And it shows you the slide too, isn't it? And the speaker notes, which aren't there. We have an advisory board. So the Document Foundation is run by a community of developers, a meritocracy. But we have a load of companies and entities who think this is cool and want to be involved, supporting it financially and supporting it politically. So things like the Free Software Foundation there, Freies Office Deutschland, we have Software in the Public Interest, which is the entity behind Debian, which is a popular distribution these days. Intel, Google, Red Hat, SUSE, and so on. We're affiliated in all sorts of different ways. OASIS, the document, the entity behind the Open Document Format, Open Invention Network, Open Source Initiative, various worthy open source bodies. And we're primarily a copyleft organization. We think the best way to build your community and encourage people to contribute is to make it clear from day one that you're meant to contribute back. If you make it clear from day one that you don't have to contribute back, usually we think the result is not as positive as all that. And we have years of experience to prove it. So here we are. I'm just going to whiz through what is LibreOffice in case you crept in without knowing. We have a word processor, we have a spreadsheet, we have charting, we have a presentation application. You may have noticed me use that. Actually, I'm using the latest build from Master. And I've been really impressed. It hasn't crashed really. It crashed for me once when I was closing it. But, I'm filing a bug. I'm working on that. We have a drawing package. We have a database thing built in. And maybe you can think in your mind of the equivalent proprietary products brands for each of these as you look at them. So we build all these things, but to me it's more interesting that people have fun. The community is an exciting place to be involved in, that you can get stuck in and do stuff. It looks a bit grey, doesn't it? A bit dark for some reason. There are lots of people there. That's us gathering for our group photo in Berlin, a conference. People from all over the world. We have people from Saudi Arabia, quite a large team there. In it, we have people from deeply secular France, for example. We have people from Hungary, loads of people, as we'll see later on. There are people from all around the world. We even have a few Americans and English people too. So here's a graph of code contributors. We like to show people this. The blue guys at the bottom are people that we'd never seen before we started the project. So these are entirely new contributors. And the number there, 90, nearly 100 people, are the individuals who got code into LibreOffice that month. So this doesn't show you translators, it doesn't show you documentation, it doesn't show you web designers, it doesn't show you UI designers, it doesn't show you any of that. This is just code. So I'm sorry, it's only a small part of what we do, but an important one. So we're encouraged by that. And so it's growing in fits and starts, but growing. In terms of the patches that go in, there are really three ways it breaks down. The biggest and most important contributors we have are those volunteer developers, unaffiliated with anyone. After that, we have SUSE as the second biggest contributor, and in terms of commits per month, and then Red Hat, which is great. And there's lots of nice numbers. 13,500 individual subscribers. That's nice, isn't it? If you measure progress by email, you have other problems. So, well, anyhow, there's lots of people reading the email, and we have members of the foundation, loads of users, loads of downloads. At this point, we're going to switch from Florian's slides to my slides. So, here we go. Slight difference in tone. One of the things we would love you to do is to deploy LibreOffice. If you run a company or a government or a whole country or the world, we would love you to deploy LibreOffice in your enterprise, or maybe it's an education institution. And most people do this, or they think about doing it in a way that's pretty wrong. So the first thing to do, in my view, is to get someone to support you. We're trying to build an ecosystem around LibreOffice that works, a financial ecosystem. And it's true, a third of our changes come from volunteers, but large numbers of changes don't. And we need to make sure that is ever more diverse. There are more and more companies involved. And I'd love to have Hungarian companies doing this, Hungarian non-profits, local people inside every nation, who are able to contribute and to support people. So if your support can't fix bugs for you, you have a real problem. You need support that is certified. So we have a certification program to make sure that people can be confident the guy they hired can actually fix bugs. So one of the problems we had in the past with the previous project was that lots of people would sell support but not actually be able to fix anything. And that's not obvious to you as a customer, is it? Trying to buy support from a plausible guy in a nice suit, can he do it or not? So we'd encourage people to get certified developers, a company that employs certified developers. And that certification is not for a company, it's for an individual developer who is competent. So a company is only able to do it if they employ or contract, that kind of thing. Anyhow, forget that. These people should tell you when they come into your company how to do it. And, oh, it crashed. Fantastic. I'll have another bug to file. Let me move on using this guy. So here's the worst practices then for deploying LibreOffice. The guy at the top thinks, well, maybe I can segment my users, and 90% of the users can use LibreOffice, but 10% maybe are power users, the supposed power users, who might have trouble in some cases. And so what he thinks is, well, I'm going to save a whole load of money by making sure I don't buy support for those 10%, right? But the problem with that means that, around these places here where you're interchanging documents, you're using Microsoft file formats, inevitably. And this is where your pain comes in, right? This is, we do as good a job as we can of importing and exporting Microsoft documents, but at the end of the day, it's not perfect, right? I'm sorry to break it to you. If you didn't know that, and I'll show you, the progress we're making there, improving it. We're doing some great work. Still not perfect. So what we recommend is that you immediately deploy LibreOffice everywhere. You can run, and this is the key realization, you can run LibreOffice and Microsoft Office on the same Windows system. And it just works, right? So the good news about that is you can then deploy LibreOffice everywhere. You can switch to ODF everywhere. And LibreOffice interoperates with itself using ODF perfectly. Right? It's really good at it. In the same way that Microsoft interoperates with itself using Microsoft formats perfectly, pretty well as well. Okay, so this puts us on a level playing field. ODF everywhere, and then shunt these power users off to use Microsoft Office for those few things that they can't. The massive spreadsheets, the twisted ActiveX components, whatever it is. So if you do this, you immediately rid yourself of most of the problems with interoperability, and you switch to ODF, which is a good thing, okay? So, just a tip. Anyhow, moving on, that's kind of random, but important. Applying our community, which I was talking about, all of these guys involved working together to features. I just want to whiz through some of the things, a few of the things in 4.0. So LibreOffice 4.0 came out a month and a half ago, something like that, 6 weeks ago. And there's a lot of changes there. I mentioned interoperability. We're doing a whole load of work. And actually, some of these are implemented in Hungary, you'll be pleased to know. So Miklos here. Where's Miklos? I have to embarrass him. He didn't attend my talk. Or is hiding. Where is he, Andreas? Aha! Yes, you see, there he is in blue. Yeah, he implemented this. So, if you have comments in a document, now you can have range-based comments instead of ones based on just a position. And so, of course, you load a Microsoft document with range comments. It comes into the core. You save it out again. It just works. It's perfect. And the document is not damaged in any way. So great, for round-trip interoperability, nice feature for everyone. I think that came out of a L3 bug, a customer bug, SUSE. Similar thing, again, also done in Hungary by Miklos. There are lots of features in 4.0, incidentally. They're not all done in Hungary, just so you know. So this is the document beforehand on the left-hand side. This is the LibreOffice 3.6 version of the document. As you can see, minimal, Spartan. Elegant, I don't know. If your house has no furniture in it, you would like that document, On the other hand, we have this, beautiful, whatever it is, invoice, which is kind of encouraging progress. There's one bug I particularly like in LibreOffice RTF, which used to be that we threw away all of the document after the first formula that was embedded in there, like the first equation. And seemingly, this is the kind of thing, often people read a document, and as soon as they see a formula, they stop reading. So it was great for those guys, The document just wasn't there after it. So, affirmed their hatred of maths or something. But either way, again, fixed by Miklos. So improved formula import. Excellent. This is done by some other guys, actually another company in the ecosystem called Lanido, and getting e-ink annotation in case you have a Microsoft tablet of some kind. Interoperability, of course, is talking to other people's products as well. So we have CMIS support. This is an open standard protocol, so we can now start to talk to modern SharePoints, Alfresco, Nuexo, some SAP systems, some IBM systems, to integrate and check in and check out and manage your documents in those. What we really like is moving people out of proprietary binary file formats into open ones. Did I mention that? So we now have Microsoft Works support. It's actually pretty good and ships by default. WordPerfect. For many versions of WordPerfect, one of the most capable filters you'll find out there. Visio, now we import really nicely. CorelDRAW, and in the most recent 4.0 release, Microsoft Publisher. So you can start to see your publisher files. I can't read Russian, but it looks interesting, whatever it is. Visio, we now import all versions of Visio, including stencils, so from the very, very first 1.0 release up to the just released 2013 XML format. So we can drag anyone out of that ecosystem and they can use free software. What else? We have a whole lot of improvements in Calc. I just picked that component. So arbitrary XML import, so you can pull XML into a spreadsheet and make it, do funny pivot queries and so on it, which is kind of nice. Pretty conditional formats, so these bars in cells. And again, this done by a volunteer, Michael Meeks, who's just an ace guy. And if you have stock options, if the market was going up, you could see how rich you are with these new formulae. In today's market, it's mostly a recipe for depression, so you can ignore that. But there are some things that make life better. This remote control is actually unfeasibly useful. So have a play with it. Come and see the booth. You'll love it, and makes your smartphone seem more compelling as a business investment. If your company hasn't bought you a flashy smartphone with a nice screen on it yet, you should install the Impress remote and then, beg properly, because it's a key business tool. And there's some other fun work. If someone wants to get involved with the project, actually we have a Google Summer of Code. Google pay $5,000 for a student to work in their summer vacation on features. And one of the features we have spec'd there, we're looking for a student to work on, is an accelerometer-based pointer, so that I can point at the screen like this, just using the nice haptics in there, which would be good. So lots of fun things there. Another thing from Hungary is Laszlo has written this nice Libra logo thing, and it seems quite cute. It doesn't seem terribly useful. But one of the problems in education today is that we teach children about biology, so they understand their bodies. We teach them about physics, so they understand the world. And then we teach them computers, by which we mean typing. You know, we sit them down in a dark room and they type into a word processor. And this is supposed to be computing. This is supposed to help them understand computers. Bit of a sad problem. Maybe in Hungary it's better, but in many places this is a disaster. So what better than putting a programming language that you can actually do programming in your native language, so in Hungarian, actually into the Office suite itself, so that the problem becomes the solution. Kind of neat. Anyway, so you can do these pretty little logo things, you can write small programs, you can get a document out of it, and you can still print it out at the end, which is a key. You know, killing trees is really important, you know. And then pasting it into another book, you know, so that you can then show it to the parents. Very, very important. So we can meet all those needs. And if you come to our booth, we have a nice book. There's actually a workbook for teachers going through that. We think it's kind of cool. But a fun thing. It's not a business tool that's going to solve your, you know, it's not got the make money button that most people want in their spreadsheet. You know, you click the make money button, and it makes you money. It's great. You can even get those woodpeckers that Homer Simpson has to do it for you. You know? Anyhow, improving the UI, making it nicer. So we have improved a whole load of image interpolation stuff. A great work done there to make images look less lame. If you're Arabic or you speak Arabic, the right to left support actually works now quite well. There were a whole load of bugs that have been fixed by a great team out there in Saudi Arabia. Much improved template selection UI to make it pretty. Styles, we're eager to get people to use styles rather than bolds and italic and this sort of thing. So, you know, just adding previews here so people can see what their styles look like rather than heading 1 in black text, heading 2 in black text, you know, and so on. So hopefully that helps people. If you use Unity, you can integrate with a menu system. I love this feature personally. This allows you to put, you may notice in the top of your Office suite, pretty birds, you know, behind the toolbar. It's a key usability improvement, or maybe not. However, it's actually a customer feature. You know, customer came to SUSE and said, we don't like the way the toolbars look, we want it to look better, this sort of thing. And so a small Canadian meat processing company, system administrator, effectively had this funded for everyone. So everyone can have pretty birds behind there. Or corporate logos, you know, if that does it for you, which is cool. So yeah, another example of support in action, I hope. So that was the first presentation. I have another 15 minutes. I talked too quickly. But really, I want to get to the development piece, which has got some cool demos in it of Android and, you know, online Office suites. And I have to drink all of these glasses of water as well. So, you know, I don't know, I've only got one so far. But so there's time for questions now, or I can, you know, you can escape if you find developer things scary. Or we can just move on. What would you like? Consensus. So who wants to move straight on to the next thing? Okay, who wants to escape? There's no punishment, you know, honestly. You know, okay, well, do just leave. If it gets too technical, that's absolutely fine. I completely understand. So now I have to work out how to load another document. I think I can do it here. Can I? Yes, perfect. Okay, here it comes. So this is the next guy, and hopefully, yeah, it even works. So this is what I'm going to say in the development section. So first I want to talk about Hungarians. They all have names I can't pronounce, but we'll get to that. Then I want to show you what we've been doing in development under the hood. Because some of the most exciting stuff, well, some of the exciting stuff to me as a developer, you can't really see in screenshots. So we'll try and show you some pictures. Then I want to show you how we fix bugs. I'll take you through a single sample bug and how it's been fixed. And then I'll do some crazy demos, and then we have some real questions, hopefully, and get to that. So, the first thing that's worth saying is that LibreOffice was really started in Hungary. So in the Mocha Cafe, we all got together and we sat down and we planned this at a separate conference. And all of these people here, and Kalman booked this nice restaurant for us, and we sat down and we decided, yeah, you know, we like the look of each other, despite the photographic evidence to the contrary, and we're going to work together and you know, and do this and make this happen. So we really very grateful for that. But more important than that, by a long way, is just the sheer volume of people in Hungary that have contributed in the last 2 years to LibreOffice. So we're just really, really impressed. You know, your sons and daughters. Actually, I don't think we have any daughters yet. We need some daughters, you know, to contribute. I'm training my 4 daughters to program using Scratch at the moment, and you should too, because it's very good. Search for it online, Scratch. Anyhow, Andras is doing all sorts of good things here, leading the localization effort, really. A member of the engineering steering committee that leads the project. Miklos, I've just shown you lots of his good work on the screen. Laszlo, who's done some fantastic things. Gabor, doing the localization. Cami, making Oxygen Office. Robert, porting to OpenBSD and doing great stuff there. And then just a huge slew of volunteers and students getting involved and doing just great work. So we're really grateful for all of that. And that's a really impressive contribution as a nation. I think you should be pleased that they're doing some great work on your behalf. But we always want more. You know, we're greedy like that. You know, so there's more space on that slide. Did you notice that at the bottom? You know, your name could be there. So great. So in terms of how we work, how to get involved, we like to make it very easy to get involved. So you don't have to ask permission. You don't have to go and beg anyone. You know, if you get things wrong, that's fine too. We expect that with new people. And really, we're friendly, you know. Not all projects are like this. You know, there are cultures that are very closed, that think they have everything right, that don't want change, that don't, you know, expect to improve at all. And we're not like that. we expect a revolutionary change. We expect an increasing pace of innovation. We expect people to break stuff while they're fixing things. That's quite normal, and we try and overcome that. So changes are really actually welcome. We make it easy by having a page of simple things to fix. Some of them require 0 programming skill. So if you're sitting there feeling safe, thinking, I don't have any programming ability, you know, so I don't have to contribute, you know, to make the world a better place. Wrong. You know, you can contribute. So if you look at the Easy Hacks page, there are some that are just very, very easy. If you understand German and me, then we have a German comment translation problem. We'll look at that, but you know, you could help with that. And we're also very open, so our mailing lists are just no subscription is required. You can post, and you even get replies, at least the development lists. Send a patch off, and you're done. You know, so very easy to interact with. We even have documentation for the code, which is a radical new idea. Lots of README files that try and explain the structure to help you get in, and much better Doxygen comments than in the past. You can actually commit to LibreOffice, even if we don't know who you are, we've never met you, and you know, you haven't asked permission of anyone at all. Anyone can commit anything to LibreOffice. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? It is a bit crazy. So we actually have a review phase as well. But in terms of actually getting your code uploaded and committed to our repository, that's trivial. The key then is actually getting into a code base that people use. That requires review, of course. But very, very easy. There's a nice web tool there, and it's just extremely good flow to use. And of course, we've seen this graph before. What else do we have? Out of master build. So we try and make it build really reliably on lots of platforms, and we have lots and lots of tinderboxes for different platforms. Because of that, we saw this picture before. We've also tried to make the code base easy to read and hack on. So in the past, we had 2 different make systems, and one was an ancient, obsolete, horrible, twisted nightmare. And in 4.1, we completely killed it, which is great. And so the code is now reasonably understandable, reasonably clean, and we can see the dependency graph in a beautiful way. And we can build in parallel. If you have a 1,000 CPU machine at home, do you have a 1,000 CPU machine at home? Well, we can actually use that machine. We can exercise it. We can run probably 10,000 CPU compiles in parallel. You know, the thing sits there and it builds a dependency graph, and then it can just do all of this work. And that really helps build times, as you can imagine. So inside SUSE, you know, we have these big build clusters. And so we can build in, you know, 15 minutes or something from scratch, which used to be a day or so. So this is kind of good. Still slow on Windows, but we're working on that. Enabling library, and actually it's interesting, I was being told earlier how wonderful Windows was by some enthusiast. And Yeah, I mean, to build on Windows versus Linux, there is just an extraordinary performance difference. As I say, it is many hours slower, which is rather a shame. One of the things this allows us to do is to merge our libraries into one monster library. So if you ever used Firefox, it starts quite well these days, reasonably quick to start. And one of the reasons for that is that it's just one huge lib library. It's just one shared library, which is 10 megabytes small or so, and it sucks that in, and everything's in it. And so we're going this way with LibreOffice. Unfortunately, our library is not 10 megabytes, it's about 60 megabytes small, because we have more stuff in LibreOffice, you know? So, yeah, it's more complicated. I mentioned the German comments thing. We're making good progress on this. I think we're now at something like 19,000 lines of German comment. There's an elite hack, again, an elite Hungarian hack, that uses the language detection code and parses our comments out and says, oh, that's German. Oh, that's German. And lists these out. So we have some nice metrics, but we're somewhat over halfway. So if you can speak German or read it, please do get involved. Some of the comments are strange, even for Germans. But either way, you know, it's good for us to get to the bottom of those. What else? There's a thing that is increasingly useful in the UI, which is layout, toolkit layout. So the original UI of LibreOffice, all of the widgets are hammered onto the screen one by pixies. Dwarfs, something like this. You know, they appear and they nail them on, and they're always in those places. And this is very bad for translation. It's very bad for the look of it, and it comes out of the 1980s probably, something like that. So we're fixing this vigorously. Unfortunately, there are 500 dialogues or so to convert. Actually, I think we're at 160 of those now. So since I wrote my slide 3 months ago, it's improved. But we could really use fun here. And this is not something that doesn't require programming skill either, really. It's a matter of redrawing dialogues in a UI designer. So, you know, if you can click a few buttons, you can get involved there, and that'd be actually really helpful. One of the really interesting things about the project LibreOffice grew out of is that it had no unit tests at all. Well, to be fair, there were a few tests. Do come in, incidentally. Do just, you know, standing up is bad for you. You know, it'll damage your knees. I'm feeling it. No, if you want to, come sit down. No. You'll be more embarrassed if I keep asking you to, rather than they want to escape. It's good to have a put option on leaving, isn't it? You know. Anyhow, testing was just something that was done by human beings pressing buttons, and there was an automated test tool, but it was so unreliable as to be virtually useless. So these days we have a large number of unit tests that, for example, load documents to check the suite doesn't crash. And one of the uses of this was to go back and load all of our security bug documents from the past 20 years or so, right? So they're all filed in the security bug tracker and so on. So we just imported them all, stuck them into this nice new unit test framework, and discovered that around half of them had regressed. So the security bug had come back. So we fixed all those again, and we put the security bug documents in the source tree, and every time you build now, we check that they're still safe. This led to some interesting problems with customers, you know, like, why are you shipping in your source code all of these macro viruses, sort of thing, you know, like, what's the deal? So they're all carefully obfuscated now. There is some kind of encryption that's used, so it's not actually dangerous, but it's nice to know and be sure that by the time you get it, all of these tests have been run. And the number of tests is growing, as you see, and typically each of these runs a battery of tests. They run many tests, each of those individual files, doing all sorts of things, you know, just formula calculation, document layout, all sorts of really key things there. And again, done by a volunteer. You know, this is Marcus Mohard at the top right here. So, you know, his contribution is just amazing to everyone's product quality. What else? Well, we file bugs in Bugzilla. So we have a thing called Bugzilla, which is a piece of free software. It's very good for tracking bugs. It's also an expert tool, a really expert tool. If you show it to, a random person, and not only is it only English, but it's also really complicated, unless you know all sorts of things. So we have this beautiful now JavaScript-y web front end, again created by 2 volunteers, that allows you to click an icon and tells you and hopefully leads you through that process. And we're in the process of translating that so you can submit bugs in your native language so that we can just get better metrics, better feedback more quickly. Of course, when we get bug reports, we like to release fixes. So we have a very fast release cadence. In sometimes we're doing a release every 2 weeks and a build every week in some months, which is quite a serious load for QA. So if you want to get involved with testing, it would be really great to have help with that as well. But this is how it works. We have releases which are more and less stable. So the previous release, in this case, if we look at 3.4 versus 3.5, maybe this transition. So this is time going along this axis. It's not terribly obvious, but usually time is along this axis. So as time goes on, 3.40 is released, then 3.41, then 3.42, and 3.43. And by this stage, we think it's pretty stable for most uses. When 3.43 is released, we've got 6 months ahead somehow, right? So we're releasing 3.50, which is the first bleeding edge release of the next version. So we're simultaneously releasing 3.50, 3.44, and I think probably 3.34 or 3.35. There's quite a number of these in parallel, and picking the right one is quite a skill. And so again, we recommend that you get someone who knows what they're doing to advise you and help contribute back via them. But the good news is this release is time-based, it's entirely predictable, it happens every 6 months, whether the software is ready or not, we will release it. Why do I say it happens whether it's ready or not? Well, because there's a serious moral hazard problem here, If you think you can delay the release endlessly, you will. Because there's always some reason to delay the release. And in previous projects, we've seen this happen month after month. And this is not good. This is just a disaster area. Particularly because the bugs that delay the release for another month are usually about the same seriousness as the ones you find immediately after you released it. So it's not as if there's anything in it. So we think generally the best way to do is to release once every month, and just improve the quality as we go along and get more testing and more input from more people. And so 4.0 released 6 weeks ago, 4.0.0. We've had 4.0.1 in between times, 120 plus bug fixes in that, various new feature fixes. 4.0.2 is currently in release candidate 1. It's in freeze. I think the freeze for 4.0.2 is on Monday. And then, so 4.0.2 will be out in another week or two. So every month there will be a new update, which is good. If you want to control the madness of that and just have security fixes, again, it's good to get someone to help you with them. So I want to do a worked example of just a simple fix. This is a trivial one I happen to do, and it's just a random person reported it in the community, and I happen to fix their bug. So here we go. The document doesn't work. It's an RTF document, so immediately I send it to Miklos, who immediately sends it back saying, actually, this isn't an RTF bug at all. But here's the basic problem, that you have your document and it loads in LibreOffice, but here there's something missing. In Microsoft Office, it looks like this. There's a sort of yellow, I don't know if you can see this very badly drawn thing on the right. Incidentally, the outline was not in the original thing. I drew that on. So yeah, not there in LibreOffice, but there in Microsoft Office. Problem, right? So, not an RTF bug, it turns out. Actually, the image is mangled inside. The PNG, whoever produced this ping, PNG has a nice file format, and there are binary chunks in it, and each one has a type and a length. It's kind of obvious. Well, it just has a chunk with all of the data for the image in it, and the length is just rubbish. It just didn't bother. The last chunk, they didn't bother to get the length right. It's like 2 gigabytes for this tiny file. So instead of checking the length carefully and then not doing anything, throwing it away, returning false here, all we do is we say, well, we'll forgive them for their sins of not getting the length right, And so all this guy is doing here is saying, well, if it doesn't have a length, just use the rest of the stream, the size minus where we are. The rest of the stream will be an image. And you do that, one line change, and bingo, there's your document back with your data in it like you expected. Very easy. So that's kind of nice. Of course, not all bugs are that easy, but there are a large class of bugs where actually, it doesn't take a lot to fix the problem once you've seen the twisted, horrible, slightly odd thing that's going on in this document. So that's kind of good, and it's nice to have people to be able to help you like that. Maybe I mentioned that. So future research. I'm going to bash through a few of the things that we're working on. It's worth pointing out that many of these things are not really stable. So currently we ship on Windows, Mac OS X, on Linux, of course. We ship on the Raspberry Pi, if you've played with that. Our tinderboxes are building for several flavors of Android. We have things on iOS of various levels of maturity. These are really volunteer projects. They're not shipped. They're not supported by companies yet, but they're fun. So let's have a look at them. So talking about the Android project, it's worth pointing out that actually I didn't do any of it. Tor Lilkvist is the guy himself. And if you look at the trends on iPads and Android devices, the Windows trend versus the Android trend is, I don't know, do you use Google Trends at all? Do people use that? Put your hand up if you use Google Trends. Come on, wake your neighbor. Oh, you see, the rest of you are missing out on a brilliant, free business analytical tool. Cami. So this guy here, that's ducking down, is the Oxygen Office. You see, your name was on the slide earlier, Cami. You should come earlier to the talks. He's a contributor. Anyhow, so Android is doing well, but Google Trends will show you who is searching for what in the world. And the interesting thing about this kind of free analytics is that people think it's cool to call their product name after something totally generic. So, my new product is going to be called phone or fish or something. They come up with these acronyms, so that the totally cool new thing, it has the name of something else. So you just can't see it in the trend. So just a tip to you, change your name to ZDNQVW, okay? And then you'll just top the Google rankings. Anytime anyone types your name in, they'll get you. It's going to be number one. Either way, luckily Android had a pretty low rating before Google released their thing, so we can be confident that Windows, of course, they have double glazing and salespeople. But either way, it seems likely that Android is pretty popular. So I'm just going to do a quick set of demos. These are demos, and this is a prototype. So if you put your seatbelt on, it might crash horribly. So what I'm showing you here is, look at that, you see? And I rest my case, let me try this one instead. So LibreOffice is here running inside an x86 Android emulator running on top of my PC laptop, obviously. But you can see it's Android because we've got these buttons at the bottom here, which is great. And we can probably work out we don't have any signal strength if we touch this guy. Yeah, that's great, isn't it? Ooh. Yeah, so anyway, it's Androidy. Hopefully you're convinced. It could be a flash demo. You've got to watch out. But so this here is an ODF document, which is kind of cool because previously you couldn't render ODF documents on Android, which is tragedy. We have some other documents here too. What do we have? We have a Visio document. I mentioned we have very good Visio support. Sitting there rendering that. This is a classic of business management literature. You'll notice the totally meaningless set of buzzwords here with arrows between them. Effectiveness, ethnicity, escalation, the open world mindset. Either way, that's a random Visio thing. What else? I think we have a spreadsheet. I'll just run this till it crashes, which might be, let's see, what else do we like? Oh, we've got a .doc file here, which is kind of fun. Let's see if that works nicely. Oh, yes. So some shipping form full of fields that you could fill out. Let's see if the spreadsheet is going to do it for me. You never know. It might do. This is an XLSX sheet. I think the thumbnailing for these guys is not as impressive as it could be, but there you go. Aha! Brilliant. Okay. Till it crashes. I'm annoyed about this one because this is backing the screenshot of mine. It's actually the editable version that you can type into here. It runs on my phone. So we have some snapshot builds for these guys, and I showed you this thing too. We have snapshot builds that you can play with. They're very pre-alpha, as you can see. We're not even interested in bugs. People are working on their spare time because there's no one actually backing those at the moment. But still, it's kind of a cool thing to be involved with. So if you like Android and you want to get involved, it's actually quite easy to get involved. We've done a lot of the heavy lifting already to make it work. And how does it work? Well, there's Document Viewer. So this guy is essentially running the whole LibreOffice UI. You see these toolbars and menus and things here at the top. Kind of unchanged. So not terribly useful, in terms of touch experience. But hey, if you go and look at Windows Office, 2013 on a Microsoft tablet Surface thing, you'll discover that it looks identical to the desktop version. And what they've done is they've simply transplanted it, and there it is, to a rough approximation. So, maybe this is a useful way to go. There's work to do there. This guy, though, does it a different way. We render into textures, and the textures are then, you touch, pinch to zoom, and so on. And the textures are rendered by a separate Java piece sitting on top. So 2 different ways to do Android. Oh yes, this is an exciting demo. This might even crash my whole presentation, which is brilliant. Let me. Does this guy work as well? Probably. Hello, 1379 16 32 64. Good, excellent. I'll just confuse the whole system by talking a few slides first. Okay, perfect. So in order to understand collaboration, I think it's important to think about the world and think about Google Docs and all of this. Well, think first about wikis. So wikis are very interesting. People started using wikis long before any of these collaborative editing solutions came along. And the funny thing about a wiki is that you learn an entirely new text-based markup language, at least you used to. And to make something bold, you put these funny ticks around it, to put a bullet, you put a star in, all this sort of thing. And it's not what you see is what you get at all. I mean, it's really dire. And if you click the back button by mistake, you would lose all your data, for the first 3 years. That was just how it was. But people lived with this because you could collaborate with it. And so collaboration seems to me to be an absolutely key feature. It's something that people will sacrifice everything for if they can collaborate on the internet. So we need to do that. So we have a prototype, which I'll demo to you. The problem is that after 20-some years of development, the internal structure of LibreOffice is driven more by hope than by experience. And the design is pretty odd, I work on 3D plastic printers in my spare time. I make them. And there's some very good software there. And one of the pieces of software had this class in it called Class Model View Controller. It was a single class. It was the model, it was the view, and it was also the controller. That's great. Obviously, they'd read the book that you should have these things in your program, and they'd put them in. But anyway, there you go. So you want to watch out for this. LibreOffice is not quite that bad, but it's getting there. So make some hard upfront. So what can we do to try and make this quickly into a collaborative editing solution? So our thesis is that it doesn't really matter what you do, as long as you always do it everywhere the same on every client. So you can go away and you can talk about composable operations and operational transforms and all of these things, none of which fit our internal model terribly well. But actually, my feeling is that although we can add this complexity later, really the key is doing the same thing in the same order on every client everywhere. And so the user, to some degree, can deal with interactive conflicts. So what does that mean? So in terms of the spreadsheet, that means when you type in, hello world, actually instead of it going directly into your spreadsheet, actually you send that out elsewhere into the cloud. And then you simply apply what comes back from the cloud in the order that it comes back. And then everyone is consistent, right? Everyone gets the same messages in the same order, and they have a perfect collaboration experience with no missing things. Well, maybe it's not quite perfect, but at least it's consistent. And if you look at what some of our competitors are doing, they're doing some pretty similar things, Only one person can edit a slide at a time. Only one person can edit a cell at a time, locking these things and so on. So I think we can compete here. Another interesting thing about interactive collaboration is that setting up servers is really painful. And new protocols and new servers and server discovery and, all of this thing is just a bit of a nightmare. And particularly funding it, for lots of people so that you can, stun servers. So that maybe you're system administrators and you like setting up servers. I don't know. But for general people, it's hard. But it turns out that some companies have already done this all around the world. So, Google has a massive infrastructure of Jabber servers that you can just connect into. So why not just reuse your instant messaging connection to do your document sharing? So that's the current plan. Just reuse the instant messaging bus to transmit not only the document, but also the changes to it. So a very seamless flow. You're talking to somebody in your instant messenger. You want to edit something. You load it effectively through that channel. And maybe you start a chat room so many people can collaborate on that behind the scenes. So, okay, well, there we go. Let me try and do this demo and we'll see if it works, which is always exciting. Okay, perfect. So, let's have a spreadsheet. Let's do that. And I'll see if I can find the demo document that actually makes this less boring to watch. As you can see, I haven't changed the I haven't changed the name for some years. Does anyone remember what I called that yesterday? Let's try this thing. That reduces my mental search load. Pivot. Yeah, it's basically not there, is it? I don't know why that is. Calc collab. Aha! Perfect. I should learn to read. Excellent. So here we have one spreadsheet, and it's got some fun things in it. And if you have a collaboration built in, I'm going to do a demo session because network connectivity being what it is, and not having any friends, it's hard when you're a programmer. I'm going to have to do this locally. But rest assured that behind this there is a messaging bus, going on. So here we have, two people, Bill and Ted or whatever, and you can type your hello world in here, and it shows up over there, which is kind of nice. Or you can adjust, Bill's age, and actually he's only 3.5, so you can do that, and everything updates, and then maybe we can, hide this comment. Actually, he's not that odd, And what else? There's one last thing that you can do. You can call this, a different sheet like this, and everything updates. So quite simple, really a prototype, just proving what's possible. But hopefully to give you a flavor for what's going on, the infrastructure, some of the design choices there that we're trying to make. And of course, there will be questions at the end. So if you thought of any, just save them up. Hello. Oh, it's better now. Good. So, the other thing that people want is a cloud version. Now, there are lots of different ways of doing cloud versions, and perhaps the most pathetic and pointless way is to entirely rewrite your application to run in JavaScript. So, LibreOffice is, depending who you ask, 8 to 12 million lines of code, most of it C++. We could rewrite that entirely into JavaScript, a type-unsafe, unreadable, unlocalized, undebuggable nightmare of a language, and then we would have, only 12 million lines of JavaScript, which would be great. And as anyone knows, JavaScript runs anywhere, including your phone. So, you should be able to download these hundreds of megabytes of JavaScript onto your phone and JIT them into native code and enjoy, the write once, run anywhere experience of running LibreOffice on your phone at full speed. Unfortunately, if you're into this world, you're actually living in a la-la land. This isn't going to work. And the last Office suite that was entirely rewritten into a different language was Corel Office. You may recall the Java version in '95 that killed the company. So, so deeply tempted as we are, to go and do something very stupid and waste a fortune doing it, we thought we might not. So instead, we render using HTML5 canvas. We're using WebSockets for high latency communication, so you're not constantly creating and destroying sockets all over the place. And I'll show you a bit how this works in a second. We use a little bit of JavaScript in your client that basically just drops images on the screen, little fragments of PNG images. And all of the intelligence, all of the rendering, all of the font nasty stuff, all of the complex text layout, all of the layout even is on the server. And it's still a prototype, but it basically provides a full feature Office suite. And I'll see if we can get it to work for you. Wait a second. Right. So, hello. I'm sorry, I'm a nightmare presenter, aren't I? Look at I. Not only do I walk around, I also do other silly things. So, the important thing about the web is that when you're working, you can just switch to read the news instead. I think that's a key feature for employee awareness of the situation, productivity improvement. Anyhow. So you'll notice this is a web browser, and inside it we have LibreOffice. Actually, that's why it doesn't come outside. And, as I type, so we can have, it doesn't say. This document is actually not on Android. It's actually online now, so that's kind of good. And there's some good things down here that we can see. So let me try and get to them. I think I should probably zoom out. So the key thing to notice here is that despite not having any friends, obviously, programming on LibreOffice has these wonderful aphrodisiac qualities. Look at the results here. So I'd encourage you, Get involved. Before I worked on LibreOffice. Never mind. No. Anyhow, so the nice thing is that you have all of the functionality here. You know, you can be unhappy or you can be happy with your custom shapes, and you can do the full charting. You can do transparency gradients on arbitrary shapes, drop shadows, all of the things that you really can't do in normal Office web Office suites. Normally they're a bit like wikis. You immediately throw away all of the features that you actually want, and then life is bad. So what else can you do? You can do things like this. Okay, what I just did is just impossible in almost every online Office suite. So this is a header. Actually, as a header. This is doing pagination of the document, that thing that the browser simply can't do. It knows when you print it out which page it's going to be on, which is great. You can even have page numbers on the pages, and customize them. All these radical features that we haven't seen since, I don't know, for years and years. So that's kind of nice. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a few things about this. So this is a debugging mode. But as I type here, you can see what's actually changing as I'm typing. So as I type, you see what is up. So actually, all that's really being re-rendered as I do that is this tiny B box around it here. What's actually being sent is much less than that, because of course clearly that didn't change. Really, we only re-render that bit because of complex text layout and the fact that in Northern Thai, you can turn all of that into one glyph, so you have to be a bit careful, so we render a bit more. But all we really send over the wire as I type is a compressed PNG of the difference between the last frame and this. And of course we send copy areas, so when you scroll, we don't actually resend that, we just copy it up on the client and so on. So that's pretty nice. It's relatively efficient, it's full-featured, everything that you can do in the Office suite offline and more is there. So, just wandering away again over here, hello, 1, 2, 1, 2. So, so actually the interesting thing about the web Office suite is that apart from not being able to print, because the web browser doesn't provide any interfaces to printing, I'm just going to work out who's calling me in my... You see, if you don't use caller ID, then there's no way I'm going to answer. I'm sorry. It's going to sell me double glazing and increase that Windows trend there. Anyhow, so one of the things that you can't do is print, because the browser doesn't know anything about the printer, really, which is a shame. But apart from that, you have a full-feature Office suite that you can do pretty much anything with. And it can even be more full-feature than the client suite, because you can put more on the server. The online help can be there and so on. So people talk to me and they say, well, but it can't perform. You can't possibly make this work. You can't scale it to 3 million users because it's actually running on the server, most of it, not on the phone. Apart from the problems of putting millions of lines of JavaScript running on the phone, he's right. That's true. She's right. On the other hand, if indeed it is cheaper to have servers in someone else's room rather than in your room, and it may be, you never know, it may be cheaper to have cloud servers. And probably because, I don't know if you've seen the Open Compute project. Who's seen the Open Compute project? I have. I was really impressed by it. No? Okay. So let me explain to you how the computer industry, hardware industry works. You buy a computer from HP, because they're a great company, or Dell, or Lenovo, or one of these others, right? But what you don't realize is that HP and Dell and Lenovo and so on don't actually make computers. It's all a con, right? Actually, the people that make computers are people you've never heard of, and they sit behind the scenes, Compals and Foxcons and people like this. And they actually make them, and these other companies, the Asuses and so on, they're kind of brands that sit in between. Hopefully they do testing, add value, and so on and so on and so on. But if you want a cheap computer, a cheap rack of servers, because you are Amazon or you're, Google, then actually buying via one of these intermediaries can cost you more money. So instead, they've created open source hardware designs, and you can go to the Open Compute project and you can buy a monster server straight from the ODM. Now, of course, you need to buy hundreds of them. But if you want to buy hundreds of them, you can do that, and you can get them to that spec. And there's a lot of key features there, like translating the spec to Chinese. That turns out to be really, really important. Otherwise, you can often end up with something that's not what you asked for. And there's some funny stories about that I can tell you later. But anyway, either way, so if the server is cheaper because someone's got it in a data center, then you should be able to run stuff on it just as inexpensively as using the idle CPU power that you already have in front of you on your PC. So this thing here is a 4 CPU quad-core machine running, actually live, well, not live, right now, but in Largo, Florida, where the local government actually uses thin clients, and they're running, I forget how many, 200 to 300 users, they think. There's 73 concurrent users using Writer in this and 10 in Calc. They measure it. And the load average is 0.05, 0.3 going on. So we think that we can make this scale. And we also want there to be a cost incentive to optimize LibreOffice. Did I mention about the economics earlier and how important it is to get finance into the ecosystem and make this an economically interesting place? LibreOffice, a fun place to be involved. Hopefully I did. I'm also interested in making sure that people have an economic incentive to make LibreOffice better. People using it on servers everywhere want to spend less money on electricity. So that they have an incentive to improve software for everyone, and so on. So anyhow, hopefully we will get lots of cloud deployments, and everyone will win. LibreOffice. So one of the things we like about LibreOffice is the potential for code reuse. And we have all of these complicated reuse architectures and UNO environments, and the reality is that very few people use them. And those that do have problems when remote controlling it. So there's a thing now called LibreOffice, which we hope will provide a very, very simple interface for the things that people commonly want to do. One of the things they like to do is document conversion. So actually, LibreOffice has a command line parameter now. If you want to do document conversion on mass from, say, .doc to ODF, or from .doc to PDF, or from .doc to hybrid PDF with a PDF with the ODF inside it as well, you can do all this on the command line, which is kind of cool. Actually, I think hybrid PDF you probably can't, but you can do massive batch conversions with LibreOffice. But it's nice to be able to expose that to a programmer. So the initial thing here is just for format shifting. Quite simple, very dumb API. A tiny static library that you can just pull into your existing application, and it will dynamically load and find LibreOffice and suck the goodness out of it. The vampire library. Get it all into your application. And we have many plans for that, for document conversion, for indexing. There's lots of people who want to suck information out of business documents and search them and so on. And ultimately for tiled rendering, reusing the tiled renderer in the Linux desktop. So that's basically my talk. I'm sorry I speak so fast. There is time for questions. I think we have 6 minutes. Is that right? There's a beautiful screen here. Here are my conclusions. We're growing. We're executing. I hope we're executing. We're making it more fun for developers. There's still a long way to go, but the code is getting cleaner. It's getting easier to read, to hack on. Hopefully, we're delivering features to users so that users can enjoy more functionality, better interoperability, and better deployments with less stress. There's a lot of work that we need people to work on. We need to grow our community by a factor of 2, at least. So, we can do that either by having lots of children and indoctrinating them and, encouraging the next generation to do it, or more preferably would be to get more people involved. So, if you want to get involved, please do. There are lots of ways for people to help. Just bug triage, just seeing that someone else's bug actually affects you as well is a really useful thing to do. And just doing a couple of those a week would make a measurable impact in our world. So please do get involved, and thank you for your support. LibreOffice has been an amazing success, nothing to do with me, per se, or all these other people, but just such a groundswell of goodwill from so many people out there who have worked together to make it what it is. So thank you so much for your help. And that concludes my talk. Thank you. Do we have any questions? I think I have the question mic, but I can repeat people's questions. Or what can we do? Yeah? This is the question mic. Okay, I'm going to surrender it unwillingly. Is there someone that wants to run around? And is there anyone that wants to ask a question? I mean, that's the other question. Okay. Ha. That's very easy then. The first person to ask a question gets a special prize. I don't know what it is yet, but we'll work something out. It may be, oh, look at that! Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Yes. So
the question is, there's the open office community as well. How do you position the relationship between the two communities? Is there any cooperation between open office and LibreOffice? Will the macro language compatible between the two systems, and so on and so on? How would you position in the next 2 years or so?
Yeah, so in general, I don't answer really questions on what's going on there. I think that's really for them. I think it's safe to say that we haven't divided the community into two equally sized pieces. Let's put it that way. And you can go and do the research yourself. Personally, I'm excited about LibreOffice. I'll say lots of positive things about LibreOffice, and maybe you can infer what's going on. We're extremely diverse. We have a large number of contributors. We have an equitable governance, where people are properly consulted and involved. We have secret ballots when we vote on contentious issues like we have, a great set of features, growing excitement. Downloads are on the up. Every metric that you can apply to LibreOffice is improving. I'm not aware of any metric that's getting worse, whether it's downloads, users. Actually, I lie. In some cases, the number of file bugs is increasing. So, the more users bring more bug reports. So we really do need help in bug triage. But I think that's the revenge of success. If you see what I mean, more users bring more duplicate reports. So yeah, I have lots of good things. So if you want to write, for a suite that's going somewhere, and make your things compatible, then you should get involved with LibreOffice, and that would be my answer. It's not a good answer, but it's an answer. Another question. Now we've broken the ice. Aha, the gentleman at the front here.
I was wondering if you talked a lot about the online version, and I was just wondering when you think it's going to be useful on a large scale.
Yeah, so as I said, I think there are problems with the web interfaces. I'm optimistic that web browsers one day will expose things about printers. There's a standardization process. Maybe that'll happen. And so then the WYSIWYG usefulness of being able to see what's happening in your document will be much more useful in that sphere. It really just depends on investment. At the moment, there is no company that has a product commitment around any of that stuff. People are not actively working on it with any great effort. The prototype is there to say, if you want this, if you actually want it, you can come and invest in it. It's not many man-months away from being finished. So if you have a team, you want this product, it's reasonably easy to find people to do that or do it yourself. But so far, the demand is not large enough that anyone is willing to invest.
But for a kind of outsider, it would seem that it's close to being a killer feature. So they somewhat contradicts to what you're stating.
Yeah, sure. So, therein lies the problem. To me, an Android app is also a killer feature. The problem is persuading people to invest in them to get them there. That's ultimately the problem. And if it's such a killer feature, I would love you to start a company and do that. Create the Hungarian version that storms that market. I think there is a big opportunity there. I've created the prototype to make it possible. SUSE, who pays my salary, gives me a lot of freedom, but I have many calls on my time, and that's not something I can put a lot of time into at the moment. But I'm excited about it. I think there's a lot of potential there, as you say, and yeah, there's a lot of glory as well, and not a lot of work to do. So this should be a good combination. Lots of glory, not much work, potentially large financial, economic opportunity, not much work. So, but if we can bring it this close and still not have people invest, then maybe it's more hype than substance, that whole cloud thing. I don't know. On the other side, if I look at the investment, we brought this Android prototype a long way, and the WebOffice prototype a long way. And in terms of interest and investment, I think we get more on the Android side.
Got the point.
Thank you. Great question. I have exactly 0.00 seconds left to answer questions. So we do have a booth out there, which I'd encourage you to come and see, and wonderful Hungarian people who speak slowly and are more sympathetic, who can help you. So thank you for coming. You've been very good, and I look forward to seeing you at the booth.